You were having some major technical issues up until 10 seconds ago.
That's right. Okay, wait. Oh, we are live. We got it. Yay! Thank you so much, Erin, for letting us know that we are live. We so funny. We were like frantically sweating trying to get this to work. We had to do a couple of reloads of Zoom.
Thank you, Google, by the way.
Thank you, Google. Wow. That is amazing. Hi, Carson.
Guys. Oh my gosh, Anna, I just saw your post.
Aw.
Congratulations. I had no idea. I'm so excited for you.
How cool is that?
Very excited, very nervous, but it's all good. Getting through it. Doing a lot of meditation this time around. Have you heard of the app Expectful?
Is it an app? What's it
called?
It's
called Expectful, and it's basically like meditations through your pregnancy and to prepare you for labor and all that.
Amazing. You have to send it to me because I'm always looking for. It's funny. I was actually thinking about that this morning. It's something I always recommend to my clients, but then, you know, I did TM, which was like a week training, and it's like a whole ordeal.
I did that too.
And it's like that's not an accessible thing to just recommend all the time, and so I was like, I need more resources. So here you are, an amazing one.
That's so great. What's it called? Respectful?
Expecting.
Oh, expectful. Okay.
Also, I have to tell you guys the funniest thing. My boyfriend, I kept being like, he's like, why are you getting dressed up this morning? I was like, I'm having coffee with BΑEO. And he's like, he thought I was talking about him, like Bae, like coffee. And so he's like, that's so sweet. Like you're getting dressed up. I was like, and then just recently he's like, oh, we weren't talking about coffee.
That's really funny.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait to talk about your boyfriend on here because he's like the legend in my mind. He's like the sweetest guy ever. We're going to let the participants kind of roll in here for a minute. I don't know if there was tech issues on everyone else's side trying to join, if it was hard for you guys to get in, those that are here, but we'll go ahead and just get started and then see what happens. But we want to let everybody know that there's
it was hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. Okay, it was hard. We were having issues too. I don't know if something was up with Zoom this morning, but we're here. It took 3 times and then it worked. Okay, so we might need to send, I know Alex is on here. Maybe we need to send a little follow-up saying it's working now. We had tech issues with everybody who signed up, but we'll go ahead and get started regardless. Thank you guys for being here. Welcome to our second episode of Coffee with BAEO Live. We are here with our dear friend Carson Meyer, and we are so excited to have you join us this morning. And if you guys don't know Carson, she is the owner, founder of Sea in the Moon. She's also a birth doula. She's a childbirth educator. She's a DONA certified birth doula, which I forgot to say, and that is very wonderful and important. And also you're an actor too.
Yeah, am.
Yeah.
It says you, Sarah. I'm just
I'm like, you know, there's so many things. But anyway, so did I miss anything, by the way?
No.
Oh, and a photographer, and she's a birth photographer. She's got all the things, and I've seen her photography, and it's so epically beautiful. And trust me, you were like on my list of people that I wanted to be at my birth to have like birth photography and all these things. And they're just like nothing. I had a baby during the pandemic, and there was nothing. My room was so different than what it normally is. I'm normally like, fill it in, bring all the people, anybody that wants to come, you know. I love, except when I had a home birth and Anna was like, I'm going to be outside with an ambulance. And I was like, you're not invited.
I know, right? I always say, especially like the moms at a home birth, the grandmas, it's always.
Well, Yes, exactly. But none of us were moms yet when I had Wyatt at home. And so we,
It's a neurotic person who gets very scared of everything.
She was nervous.
It's like, what if something goes wrong? How are you going to get to the hospital? I'll just get an ambulance and be on standby.
I'll have the car. Oh my gosh. I had a story of a friend once who was at a home birth, and it was an emergency. It was just like transfer is now necessary, kind of, slow moving transfer.
Yes.
Yes. They were driving themselves to the hospital, and the doula lost her car keys and blocked everyone in. And they were just like stuck. So anyway, Anna, you would have been really helpful in that situation with the car ready to go.
Oh, that's totally true. I mean, what's amazing is that it came full circle because, my person during the pandemic to call was Anna. That was my person. I was like, it's a pandemic and I need someone to come here and be with me and take care of my kids so that I can go to the hospital. And that happened to be, what happened? I have no, do you have two accounts?
Oh.
Oh my gosh. I have
weird. Wait, let me see if.
I blame Zoom. Something very strange is happening today.
I wonder if
Hi girls, maybe I'm in the wrong spot. But
oh my gosh, I gave my sister the link because she wanted to join.
I'm so happy to see you guys, but I'll hang up.
Oh my gosh,
Sarah, I love you. Oh,
Ronnie, my favorite doula baby is making an appearance.
Oh, hi, baby.
I'll hang up so you guys can figure out what you're doing.
Sorry, Sarah, I sent you my link.
Love you.
It was just a
But when do I go in?
We'll send you, Anna, do you have, we'll send you the link. We'll send it to you.
Good. Okay. Love you all. Bye.
All right. Love you. Bye.
Love you.
Oh my gosh.
Hacked or something. I was like, what is going on?
What an amazing thing that just happened. We had a panelist join. It was your sister.
5 panelists. I know, because this morning she's like, will you send me the link? I was like, yeah, I thought that was.
Anna's on it right now. I can tell she's already handling it. Getting a link from Alex, sending it to Sarah is beautiful. It was such a funny thing. Anyway, so Anna was my person during the pandemic to call, and she came to my house. She was sitting outside my door like 20 minutes after I texted her and I said, I think I'm in labor and I'm probably going to go to the hospital this morning. Can you come over and watch my kids? And she was like, absolutely. What time? And it was like, I told her like a couple of hours from that moment. And then 20 minutes later, she's like, I'm sitting outside, but don't worry, it's fine.
Anna, you give birth really fast. I remember you telling me.
I think that's where it comes from. I think because I have such crazy, fast and furious labors that I'm always worried that someone else is going to do that and have no time. So I'd just rather be prepared. Like with this one, I don't know if I'm going to, who knows if I'm going to make it to the hospital.
I think you should just set up a home birth. I do think you should do a home birth. I'm too crazy. I'm too nervous. I know our doctor would come to your house. That I'm going to die during labor. You're not going to die during labor. I have the same fear with baby number 3. You're right. But it is this weird, I don't know. It's like the more kids I have, the more postpartum anxiety I experience with fear of something happening to them, but then also fear of like something happening to myself and them being without a mom.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's been for me this year. Usually my clients are first time moms. And this year, I'm having repeat clients now doing this work for over 4 years. So I'm having the second time moms come back. And then I recently worked with a mom who's 5th time birth. Wow. And it's so interesting. I think at first when I kind of, and even with my sister who just joined on, who was on her 3rd baby when I was her doula, I do this thing and I feel like, I mean, I don't have kids, so I just kind of assume like, oh, once you have kids, you know exactly what it's like. You know what labor is, you know what you're doing, you know how to parent, you know how to breastfeed. And with those clients, I kind of was just like, yeah, like, you know, like I would do this and they're like, no. And it's so true. Like every single journey is so different. Yeah. And I love that you say that. It actually even can be, when you know what it's like, you actually even need more support. And you have more anxieties and more fears. And that was this year, I think, something that I really learned as a doula was just that it's not just for first time moms. No. That system that you guys share all the time.
I can't agree more. I think going in the first time, you're going in blind and you're like, I don't know what this is going to be like. What are the I remember calling Sarah and being like, how do I know? What do contractions feel like? Is this it? Because you're just really going in blind. You have no idea what it's going to be like. And then I remember going in for Jalen for my second. I was like, oh, I remember exactly what the pain feels like. And I remember exactly the moment I threw up and got the shakes and told my doula that I was going to die if I had to do this any longer. So I think that gave me a lot more anxiety, and I needed her support way more the second time.
And no two births are ever alike. And
No.
no previous birth can prepare you for the next one.
Right.
Which, like, I think the beauties of the mystery of birth is that they are uniquely their own each and every time.
And they say that your third is like
wild card.
It's the wild card. It's right, you know, which is so interesting because mine definitely was such a wild card because she came so much later than my other two. My other two came on their due date or like right before their due date. And this one was 11 days past due date. And so it was very, it was a lot of me like, okay, taking breaths and I had tons of prodromal labor. But the experience itself was just so funny. It was very much like a pandemic birth, you know, like it was going to the hospital and it was like the morning, not the night, like I had experienced before, which was so relaxing and so wonderful. But like I was headed to the hospital in the morning. There was like jackhammer right outside my house happening. And like someone was working on our fence and it's loud. And my son had just started school, Zoom school. So he was like doing his school in the living room, and like Anna was there and she was like, you look like you're close together. You should get out the door, you know? And
I was timing.
She was timing them. And we like raced to the, you know, hospital in rush hour traffic and got there, and everyone's in masks and checking your temperature on the way in. And it just, everything felt more medical and heightened because this time,
What month was it?
September. So it's like the spike again, you know.
Yeah, and that's what I found this year. Like every month has kind of felt so different in the hospital. But yeah, September was a kind of more tense time.
Well, they had only started allowing doulas the week before. And when they had that, you know, it was like, first it was like, maybe your husband won't be able to be there with you. And then it was, okay, now your husband or partner can be there, but then now you can have a doula with you, but only at certain hospitals. And so I think I actually saw it on your Instagram story that they were allowing doulas at the hospital at Cedars all of a sudden. And I was like, whoa, is this true? And I was like texting people, and so Sonia, who's our nanny, she's also my doula. And so I was like, can we make this happen? Can Anna come? And so that was so nice to have her there. And I was really grateful to have that experience because of what was happening with the pandemic, I was more anxious. And I did have and Anna's right. Like I had all those same fears, which was just, you know, I don't know what's going to happen to me. And, you know, it was interesting, but, you know, I love hearing from the perspective of a doula. And I wanted to ask you, like, during this past year, how has that looked different to you being a doula during the pandemic? I know you've probably done a lot more home births this year. I know that there's been a lot of people who have chosen to do home births, which I would have loved to do. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
About that?
Yeah, so there were definitely, I read somewhere, and this is just an Instagram statistic, so don't quote me on this, but I believe it just because what I'm seeing, that there was a 500% increase in home birth this year.
I believe that.
The percentage of people that give birth at home is already so small, so that's not as big as it sounds. But I think in the beginning, especially when you said, right, no partners, really when we didn't know a lot about the virus, and the fear of being in the hospital was so great. And a lot of people were curious. I think there was a lot more curiosity about it. I don't know how many people actually ended up going that direction, but I think it opened up a really big conversation and a really important conversation. And I think a lot of people who maybe had an idea of home birth before kind of got to see, like, oh, actually I get why that might be right for someone, or this makes sense in this context. So that was exciting, and I've definitely attended more home births this year than ever before. There was a long time, like 6 months, where doulas couldn't be in most hospitals. So for some clients, that meant going to a different hospital that was an hour away so they could have their doula. Like Little Company in Torrance was the only one really that I know that kept their doors open to us the entire time, which I think was amazing. And then virtual support became a thing, which I say now, at the time, and still it's better than nothing, I believe. There's so much we can do, but I think nothing replaces that in-person doula support, and having someone really there. So that was something we pivoted to and just kind of made lemonade. I don't know what the saying is, like made the best out of it. And now we're able to be back in. So I'm really happy with that.
I have a question for you, just kind of random, but do you only photograph when you're the doula, or do you sometimes just come in as a photographer?
So it's a great question. I mean, I offer it for all my doula clients, and that's where most of my photos come from. I do offer it as just the photographer. That hasn't been an option in COVID, because if you're in the hospital, you can't, like Sarah's saying, you can't have your doula and your photographer. So most people want both. What?
I said, do you think it will be an option by June?
I think things are opening up for sure, but
I think it will.
I can't tell like what I think we're also seeing in this time that there's a lot of things that we will hold on to, maybe not because it makes sense, but because it's kind of convenient. And I would like to think that the hospitals are going to look at numbers and then make it open. But I think there's also a certain part that they might like about the less people, so I wonder, like, as things get better, what will go back to normal and what will take some time and advocacy to open back up. But yeah, I mean, I do it at home quite a bit for people, just as a photographer.
You're close to me. I might be texting you.
I'm there. If I'm allowed in, I am there.
The pictures.
So they're so beautiful. And it's really, Sonia took some photos on her iPhone at our birth, and then she took some video, and I have like a 14-minute video of the time of me pushing. It took me like 14 minutes to push the baby out. And so I have that all on video, and it's just hilarious. But the whole time she has the other phone, she has two phones in her hand, one that she's taking pictures with, and the other one she's got my kids on FaceTime and Anna on FaceTime. And so it's funny because she kept putting the phone in front of the video so that you could see, and Esme's face was like watching like this, and then Wyatt was in the background doing jumping jacks.
My gosh.
He's in school, so he's like doing PE. And then Esme would be like, "You're doing great, Mom," or "I love you, Mom," because
I would like mute the phone. I'd be like, "Esme, say something nice to her." And I would unmute and she'd be like, "Go, Mom." And then I'd do it again. I'd be like, "Why? Do you want to come see?" And he's like, "No, I'm doing PE."
That is so funny. I love that. Yeah, that's been another beautiful thing about doing home births at this time with the second, third time moms, is having the other kids.
Yes.
And actually, my sister, who just popped up, one of my favorite memories just ever is when we were laboring at home with her. Her son, Moses, was kind of fascinated because he was seeing his aunt, and he's like, "Why are you here at midnight? Like, what's going on? I know this is the thing you're doing," but he was like getting to watch me in action. And so he was so excited, and for his baby sister to be born, so curious. And he was just like, "I'm going to be your assistant doula." And so he was doing the double hip squeeze. We were making padsicles together. We were he was helping me fill up the hot water bottle. And I'll never forget walking out the door. And it's that moment we all have bags and things, we were leaving to go to the hospital, and all of our hands were full, and Sarah had a contraction. And so she kind of leaned over, but he didn't have anything in his hands, right? He's not walking out the door. And so he just went and did the double hip squeeze on his own. And it was the sweetest thing ever.
That is so cute.
It is amazing what a kid can bring. It's not for everyone, but it is amazing what energy shifts when a kid is involved. Like my Dr. Goldberg told me that when I was giving birth with my daughter Esme, my son Wyatt and and Sonia came in that morning at the hospital, like kind of towards the end. I think I was in transition, so somewhere around like 8 centimeters dilated at this point. And they came into the room at the hospital, and I saw Wyatt, and my energy shifted entirely. Like I went from, it was so intense, the transition, to seeing him and being like, oh, and you know, my whole mood shifted. And he said he saw that and he was blown away. He's like, wow, the power of your kid coming in and your hormones and energy changing, and you going from this like tiger to being like, yeah, to being mama.
Surge of oxytocin. I mean, no better place to get it from your kids, right?
It was perfect. It was, yeah, it was amazing.
So sweet.
So what would you, okay, so I want to get to some of the questions that people wrote in. Anna, do you have any questions before I get into some of these?
I'll have questions later.
Okay. So one of my questions is, if you're pregnant or trying to conceive and are curious about doulas, what would you suggest somebody to do? Like if they've just sort of heard about doulas but don't know much about it, what would you suggest?
Yeah, you mean in terms of looking for one, or just
looking for one? And
so there are some databases out there. There's not really like the one that I think has everybody and everything. I think it depends where you are and where you're living, of course. But I think, you know, turning to local acupuncturists, even doctor, right? There's people that are in your community that might know a doula. Yoga teachers are a great one. I think there's a lot of crossover in that as well. And then I have to say, like, Instagram is where I find a lot of my clients find me. So I know it sounds funny, but that's also a place to look. And then there's like Google and Yelp. And so I know it sounds silly, but like it's just asking around and then asking girlfriends, right? I think a lot more people have used doulas than maybe we know or talk about, depending on where you live. And I think there's so much power in that word of mouth. And
for sure.
I mean, what would you guys say? It's funny because I'm on the other side.
I kind of did all of the above. I asked my doctor, I asked my friends, but and then I had these recommendations, but I felt it was really important to meet all of them. So I actually met 4 before I picked my doula.
Absolutely.
I was looking for something really particular and someone that I really felt comfortable with and someone that I would feel, you know, that I would want there. So I met 4 until I found mine.
Yeah, I think there's a doula for everyone, and I always say like meeting with them, preparing questions, and then just feeling the vibe, right? Like you have to really like that person and want to be with them in your most intimate moments.
Yeah.
I think I had and I'm sure this is a common misconception, but I think I had in my mind when I was looking for a doula that I wanted to birth with somebody who would like experience birth themselves. But then that, after the fact, like once I got to know my doula and got to know the sort of doula world and birth world, I was like, that doesn't matter at all. And I took doula training and you know, just kind of, I got to see like what a doula represents as more of your support system. And actually they support so much of the father too, or the partner, you know? So it's, it was interesting because when I was first looking, I was like, oh, you know, I kind of would love to birth with somebody who's a mom who's been there. But then I realized that after the fact that doesn't matter. And
it does matter. That's why I say like a doula for everyone, right? And I was like, some people want like more of a maternal figure in the birth space, and that's beautiful. And then I have some who want me because I don't have kids. Yeah. Right. So it's like really like, what are, you know, sometimes it's what do you want, but then also realizing that maybe what you thought you wanted is so different when you meet a certain
I'm right there with Sarah though. First time around, I was like, oh, I want someone like who's been through this. And then after the fact, I realized it's really not about that at all.
It's not. Yeah.
But also, I think a lot of people maybe don't know like what does a doula do, right? Like what goes into from A to Z. What do you provide for your clients? That I think people sometimes have a misconception about that as well.
Yeah, so it's different doula to doula just in terms of the offerings, but how I work is I do a lot of prenatal prep. So I meet with my clients at least 3 times before the birth. And I've recently, through this past year, started something called Growing Together, which is a mother circle. And so that's 12 weeks. So for all my clients have access to that circle, and we really get to dive deep and kind of continue these conversations we'd be having in the prenatals with other moms to be, which I think is really powerful. But we're doing everything from preparing, just childbirth education, right? Understanding what's going on in the body, what to expect in labor, knowing your choices, whether it's a home or hospital birth, understanding all the different routes, right? So even for my home birth clients, we talk about hospital birth because sometimes that's where the baby wants to be born. And so we really prepare for all of that. We create the birth intentions, which is also known as the birth plan, but birth never goes as planned. And then we talk about comfort measures. So for those who want to have an unmedicated birth, we prepare for that. We build that toolkit, especially like you said, Sarah, with the partner, help the partner feel safe and have a good understanding of the process and how to be the best support person in that situation. And then a lot of my clients know that they want an epidural. So we talk about how to optimize the pre-epidural time and the laboring at home and utilize those comfort measures there, and then how to make the best of an epidural. And then as in the time of birth in a hospital, I'm an advocate. So I'm making sure that all questions are being answered and that my clients are really being heard and that they're getting just a real big picture of all of their options and all of the buffet, say, and knowing all the risks and benefits to that. And then I'm also there to support postpartum. So I usually do, I'm not, there's postpartum doulas and birth doulas, which there's also a lot of crossover. I don't do the day-to-day postpartum work, but I do believe that my work doesn't end at the birth. And so I'm really always there for my clients as well, helping them to prepare for postpartum and then as somebody to lean on in that time as well. So that's kind of a snippet, a long snippet of
I love that. That's so beautiful. Like that's a lot of offerings, by the way, and it's wonderful.
I love that. I remember my first one, because it was so fast. Anna Paula was like, "This is like the easiest labor I've ever had," because I got there and you pushed the baby out and we pushed
it.
Gosh. But then the second,
you're like, no, it's not the easy. I know. I always like watch myself, and I'm like, that was so easy. You're like, I hate you.
That's easy for her because she really didn't have to do anything. But then the second one, I was induced. I had to have Pitocin, and it was so much more intense.
Yeah.
And she was so, and also the anxiety that came along with having a second. And I remember like her stroking my hair, and she was feeding me pretzels in between contractions because I just was so nauseous. And she's like, "Have a little salt, like it'll help you." And then she would put like essential oils in front of me for the smell, and just was so much more involved because we had a little more time, not much, but still the Pitocin contractions were so much more intense for me.
Right. Yeah. Night and day.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too. You talked about like doulas that are right for you, and it's interesting how sometimes, and when you're also talking about where the baby wants to be born, but after having 3 births now, it is funny like how each baby comes into the world in their own way, for sure. Each birth is very different. They also kind of choose who's supposed to be there, which is so interesting too. It's like, Anna, you may have had, a specific thing happen in one of your births where somebody who was supposed to be there wasn't there. And maybe there was something to that. Maybe there was something, if you, can look into that, because I remember that happening with you. And then for me, like my doula, who I love, who was there with us for my son's birth at home, boy, did I need her there. Like Anna Paula, she kicked in the last few, I don't know, like 20, 30 minutes of birth when Wyatt got stuck. And her chanting in my ear and telling me when to push and helping me through that. I mean, that's what got that truly, I believe, is what got him out of me, because it was more than I could have ever bargained for in that moment. And then she actually got stuck in another country for my second birth. And so she was supposed to come in and she's like, my flight got delayed. And I was like, no problem. I don't have any contractions or anything. And then I went to bed that night and woke up in the middle of the night and I was in labor and I was like, oh no, she's in another country. But the person who came in her place was my postpartum doula, Janet. And it just all works out the way it's supposed to. And so I think that's why sometimes they talk about in the birth community, that word surrender is like surrendering to what's going to happen. We want to be in control, but sometimes we have to surrender. And that's such a beautiful thing to focus on.
So for a control freak, it's really hard to surrender.
It is. So some of the folks that registered here wanted to ask you a few different questions. And one of them is, what's like one of the strangest situations that you have been in during birth, and how did you help someone get through it?
Oh my gosh. Strangest. I mean, birth is always so strange.
Yeah.
Like every birth is so unique and always a ride. I always like to talk about my first, which was a second time mom. My first birth was really fast, really, really fast. And so that was a really, I think, good initiation into birth work for me, because I had just finished my training. I'd read about how long labor is and how you time, and like read all the books. And I had a friend who had been a doula for many years, and so I was like texting her, asking her like, is it time? And ultimately it just was like, comes down to intuition, where this mom, like, everyone was like, no, she just started, it's fine, she has plenty of time. But I was like, no, like, we're getting in the car now and going to Cedars. And she ended up giving birth like 4 minutes after we got to the hospital.
Oh my God.
Like, baby, doctor didn't make it or anything. And I was like, what a perfect lesson to just not go by the books ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And not because everybody needs to rush to the hospital, I don't mean it that way, but just, we were in communication, we were in kind of like a harmony together. And as a new doula, I think that's the big fear, is you take them in too early, right? You're not doing the job that they are hiring you for at home. So that was really wild. And I remember, thinking, wow, that was so easy. And I was like, that was so fast and great. But, I've had also some 3-day births. I've had births where, and I think this happens more at home, which is really beautiful, is like we get to work through a lot of the emotional stuff. And when we look at like a stalled labor, or a labor that's taking really long, or somebody is at 10 centimeters for 6 hours, like those are things that we don't always allow to happen in the hospital, right? Because it's seen as a dysfunction. But I think some of the most interesting or fascinating ones are when we kind of take a step back and see what is going on emotionally in this space, right? What's like the big picture here, and what could be holding that mother back. And sometimes that's enough to keep things going. Sometimes it is because we need a little bit of medical intervention. But I think it's always so amazing to be at a home birth and to work with midwives and see them bring that aspect into the birth.
I love that.
Yeah.
Someone else was asking, can you talk a little bit about safe co-sleeping? Do you have information on that? We can all talk about that, I'm sure, because we all do it.
I love that question.
My kids are there.
I first of all say, like, to my clients when we talk about this, I'm like, don't ask me. I slept in my parents' bed until I was like 14, and they're like, oh no, let's do opposite of whatever Carson's parents did. But no, I clearly, because of just not from a mother perspective, but from a child perspective, I'm a big fan of co-sleeping, because it, I think, was where I felt the safest as a child. And I remember that feeling, and I remember that being really important to me. But from a doula perspective, like you said, so many people are doing it, but there's so much shame and judgment around it because of the culture we're in, I think. But it's kind of become, I think, like the best kept secret, that so many moms are doing it but aren't actually talking about it. And I've had clients reach out postpartum and feel a lot of guilt, shame, like they're a bad mom because they're co-sleeping. Like they feel like they're putting their child in danger, or bed sharing. When really we look at the research, and there's high risk co-sleeping situation and low risk. And for those who are not smoking cigarettes, taking sleep medication, drugs, have a water bed, have 5 million pillows on their bed, right? If you are co-sleeping in a safe environment, it is actually not a high risk thing to do. For a premature baby, in a household where one of the parents in the bed, you know, is using drugs or any medication that can interfere with sleep, then that's a different story. But I do think, and you guys can speak more to this, that it is one of the best ways for the mother to get sleep, and sometimes the place where mom feels safest and anxiety is most at bay. That said, some people have a lot of anxiety about co-sleep or bed sharing, in which case it's not the best place, right? But we do know that for the first few weeks or months even of a baby's life, being in the room, which can be bed sharing or co-sleeping, which just means in the room, is does decrease chances of SIDS.
Yes.
Likelihood of SIDS. So it actually is statistically safer to have the baby closer to you. And I love those things, those like sidecars that you sit on the bed.
Yes.
I love that because I think it's the best of both worlds, right? You have baby right there, you can turn over, side lie, breastfeed. But if you are anxious about having the baby in your bed, it's a separate space for the baby. It also doesn't take away from your own sleep space if it's limited or you have other kids.
There's a
sorry.
Go ahead. Anna, I actually got something from you. I was going to say, I didn't know if it was on your bed right now. But you know that thing, that bumper thing that you put underneath your sheet, and it's like, do you still have it on your bed right now?
No, because Lila stopped rolling off the bed.
But it's just like a bumper you can get on Amazon, and it like goes underneath your sheet. And I remembered that from your bed, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna try that, because we were still sort of transitioning Esme to a floor bed, is what we call it in our room.
Yeah, the futon.
The floor bed. So we were still when the baby, my new baby was born. And so I had some nights where Esme was still in between Eric and I, but I had the baby like over here, and then there was the bumper, and it was so great, you know. And honestly, I sleep better when all my kids are in the same room, but not everybody's like that.
Oh,
and it's just, it really depends on your situation. But in our book, for the Zen Mama book, we have a whole thing about co-sleeping and bed sharing, and, you know, just kind of go into exactly what you're talking about, all the different ways that there are high risk ways that can happen, and there are low risk. And so
I need to reread that section, because right now I'm like 3 months away from having this baby, and both my kids sleep with me. Lila's 6 and Jalen's 2. Yeah. And Peter sleeps in a different room, so it's just me and my kids. And I obviously co-slept. My baby slept in bed with me always. Lila, and then Jalen, and Lila was in bed when Jalen was in bed as well. But now with 3, I am a little bit nervous. I'm like, it's like Lila, Jalen, me, and then baby on the side, or do I put a mattress on the floor and have them transition to like sleeping right next to me? But then I don't want them to feel like they got kicked out of the bed because of the baby.
I was worried about that too, because we never ever once had Esme sleep on floor bed until the baby was here. And I was like, I know better than this. Like, what is wrong with me? I know that I'm not supposed to do that. I mean, I've written a book about it. Like,
prepare and ease into it.
It's sort of like, I don't know. I think I just loved sleeping with her so much. She's so easy to sleep with, Esme. She doesn't flop around. I mean, she does have like things where she like calls out in the middle of the night, like, no, Wyatt, you know, and then she's like, but you know, she's just like such a wonderful cuddler. And so I think I was just enjoying that while I was pregnant, and I wasn't thinking ahead to what would happen afterwards. And so Eric was like, hello, how did we not do this? And I was like, I don't know, but it was fine. You know, we put a bed on the floor, and then we just talked about how we were going to have her sleeping down there and have the baby up here for a little bit, but I would go back and forth. And so I was like, I'm going to lay with you for a little bit and have our own time, just the two of us. And then I would go back up to my bed when it was like bedtime for me and sleep with the baby. And it worked out great. And you know what? She still came and got in my bed in the middle of the night sometimes.
Yeah.
But I had set up a safe situation to where she would be nowhere near the baby. And it was totally a safe bet. So it worked out for us.
The thing I'm considering is that side thing.
Yeah, the
right next to the bed, so the baby's technically in bed, but is sort of separate and not taking up any space of the access.
Yeah, and you can do like breastfeed baby, be there on that side, and then tend to the other babies on the side. I remember like my mom had a big thing, or she like it would really hurt her back if she was in the middle. Like she had to sleep on one side. And so I have a little brother, and I remember it was like this big thing as like the big sister, like a sacrifice I had to make because he was the baby. And I think it was like, even though it was a bummer because like he got mom, I remember being like, he's our baby, you know? And so I think as an older sibling, like you understand, like I got certain things as the older child, but I'm the big brave sister that slept on the air mattress, you know, and I'm doing this for him because I love him and I know that he needs it, and I'm brave enough to be 2 inches from mom here.
It's nice because right now it's Lila, Jalen in the middle, and me on the side, and he loves Lila so much that like he'll turn to her in the middle of the night and like really cuddle with her. So at least we have that going. But we actually have a great question here from Erin. When interviewing OBs, what's a question a first-time mom should ask that she maybe not think to ask?
Such a great question. You know, I think the earlier you can have conversations with your OB, the better. Mostly because then you can switch if it's not the right match. Like a doula, you don't really always have the luxury of getting these like long conversations and seeing how you vibe with your OB. I find a lot of people just are like, this is the gynecologist I had, or my friend recommended, and you just jump on it. So I do think the earlier the better. But I think it requires also you doing some of the research first and beforehand to know what questions are relevant to your birth. If you're somebody who wants to have an unmedicated birth, I think it's really important to find out how your doctor can support that through the choices that you guys make together.
Also see what their reaction is. Sorry to interject, but
are they like rock on, or are they telling you that that's impossible?
Yeah.
And I doubt that would be something you could do. Such an important one, just figuring that out. And then like as you get deeper into like making the birth intentions, you know, one that is rarely given as an option, but I think is so important for a low risk pregnancy is not to have continuous fetal monitoring when you're like plugged into the screen, because as you guys know, like movement, right, is such an important pain reliever. And to be like on your back in a bed, stuck in a bed, even if, sorry, the peacocks making some noise. Even if you're like, oh yeah, you can move around freely, right? That's something that a lot of hospitals brag about being able to do. Freely only means so much if you're attached to the screen.
Yes.
Some doctors allow Doppler monitoring, which is what a midwife would do at home. They listen to the baby every 30 minutes to an hour, which is evidence-based as a safe alternative to continuous monitoring. Some hospitals offer a Bluetooth monitor, which if you have to be on continuous monitoring, then that is allows you to be untethered. I think that is so important. Also, the water breaking is such a big one, and I see this all the time. So many doctors want, the minute your water breaks, even if it's clear fluid, rush to the hospital. I think having a doctor that's on board, if you want an unmedicated birth, with you not having to induce right after ruptured membranes, is going to give you a better chance of having an unmedicated birth. I also think that just paying attention, right? We talk about informed consent, to the vocabulary they use. You are in full control of your situation. You have every right to refuse any type of care or ask for any type of treatment. And the minute you hear things like you can't or I'm going to, right? Even just I'm going to check you. No, you're going to ask. Sorry, guys. All day long. Yeah, like pay attention to the vocabulary. Is it empowering, right? Is it putting you in the driver's seat, or is it them telling you what you're going to do? And you can notice those things throughout your prenatal appointments or even in an interview with your doctor. How do they position the conversation? Is it with you as the leader? And that's one of the most important ones. When you ask about your choices, are they giving you true informed consent, which is risk benefit? Here is your options. I'm here to support you with either one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, they can say like, I don't feel comfortable with this, but if this and this, like you're in charge. And then some say, no, we can't do that, or we don't do that. I don't like that. I don't love working with doctors who talk to my clients like that. And then the last thing I was going to say is, lost my train of thought, is just going over the birth intention. So creating that, whether it's with your doula, and usually you do that about 36 weeks, but I do think if you're thinking about changing providers, to have that conversation a lot earlier, and see if it's the right one for you.
I love that. That is such good advice. And I do think that just to go along with that, you should never worry about changing providers.
Never. Even if it's at 40 weeks. Like,
yeah, it just doesn't matter. And you have no obligation to anyone but yourself and your baby. So if you have felt off or out of sync with your doctor, if you don't like the way that they're speaking to you, there's just so many options out there. And I know a lot of it comes down to money too. And that, is definitely something for me when I was looking for my first OB. I had an OB that I did not click with. And I was like, well, I actually really want to switch to a midwife, but it's so expensive. And then I actually wrote a letter to my insurance company advocating for myself, and I got it all covered.
Amazing. Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah. And I mean, but you can do that. And it's not always going to work.
No,
but,
and insurance company, their job is to make it hell for you to get.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it can be hoops, and some people don't have the luxury of being able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. But I do think it's important to just like do the research and find the OB that is makes you feel the most comfortable in what you're going to do. And those are the most amazing suggestions.
I have two more that I just came to mind. One is due dates.
Yes.
See how attached they are to a due date.
Yeah.
Because that always sucks, right? You're like, I love my doctor, I'm so excited, this and that, and then they didn't really tell you that they're hard on inducing at 39 weeks or 40 weeks a day or whatever it is. Have a conversation with them, see where they're comfortable. And because I also think it's not comfortable to be with somebody that's in disagreement, right? So if you're like, no, I have the choice, I'm not going to come in until 42 weeks, but they're scared shitless, that's not a relaxing environment. And then also ask for their cesarean rate. So you can actually look at their numbers, induction rate, cesarean rate, and that can tell you a lot as well.
The people that know me know I'm crazy and interview like 4 doulas and 20 doctors and look at 75 preschools. I met with 4 doctors. And for me, when I met my doctor, which Sarah and I have the same doctor, it was having all those conversations, but also the way he made me feel. It was, I'm nervous, and he was really light, like he makes jokes and he's light, and it's like fun to have conversations. It's fun to be in a room with him. And so even to the labor, he brings that, he brings that lightness, and he's not too serious, but he's fully supportive of the labor you want.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really important, but also just like that energy. And the same thing with the doula, you want to vibe with the people that are going to be in the room at this like really crazy, vulnerable, really important time.
Yeah. So first hands that are on your baby, unless you're catching your baby or your partner is, but their hands are up in there. And I think there's something sacred about that. And so thinking of them as who's the first person you want to be holding your child.
Yeah.
Do all doulas have trauma specific training to help moms with trauma history? How do you go about finding that out?
Such a good question. And I think right now we're in kind of a time where there's been a lot of discussion about some of the more, sorry, that would be nice to do this outside, but terrible idea. There's, I loved my training. I love my teacher. But I do think that doula training certification in general does lack some of this really, really important skills, that being one of them. I think they kind of approach it like you're not a therapist, so don't try to be, which I completely agree. I think there's professionals that deal with trauma better than a doula would. But that said, as a doula, you're an ear, right? You're there to listen, you're there to hear. And I think processing and talking about the trauma and then being able to be there after trauma, as a we're not a friend, you know. So yes, we can bring our own, just what we would do for a friend, but I do think as a professional we need to know how to have those conversations, or when to refer out somebody who is more able to deal with that in a more professional way. And so I do think that that's lacking in basic doula training. So do not assume that a doula that is certified or went to a training has that, because from my experience, it's stuff that I had to seek out additionally.
It's part of the dating a doula process. When you find, when you're like, I did go on dates with 6 doulas, and then I found the one that really resonated with me, but I was looking for something specific, just like what Anna was saying, and
finding it trauma informed, right? Like that's a good question. Is asking, like, are you informed, and are you trauma informed? Are you trained in processing trauma with me?
Yeah, especially if that's something that is important to you. That's something I would bring up, like, when I'm seeking them out, even in an email, when you're writing to a doula for the first time and just saying, like, this is kind of some of the things that I'm looking for.
Yeah. And not all doula is gonna, I think that's such an important thing. Like, don't assume that every doula is gonna have every single training under their belt, because they don't. But I also think if you really like a doula who might not be incredibly skilled in a certain area you're looking for, noticing if they refer you out is also really important. So I know that I can't be everything for everyone. And so for me, I work with a team, I'm like, go see this person.
Yes.
Which is also
that's very important too. Yeah. Before we have to jump off here, I want to make sure that we tell everybody a little bit about Seeing the Moon. Can you tell us how Seeing the Moon came about, and what your sort of philosophy behind your
best scrub ever.
Best body scrub ever. Yes.
Thank you. So Seeing the Moon is a body scrub that I made in my kitchen for my whole life, practically. It is the first of many products to come, but it's all natural, organic, safe for use in pregnancy. It's very hydrating and moisturizing and yummy, and smells like vanilla, and
amazing. It's so good. And I know you have a mother blessing candle that you sell on there now, which is so cool, and such a cool gift to give your friends to light.
Yes.
They know that you're going to be going into labor. It's like something that they can, send you beautiful blessings and wishes and things like that. So
I felt in this time more than ever we needed ritual, because there wasn't an opportunity to come together for a lot of people to celebrate new motherhood.
I love that. I was just reading
Sarah's comment.
Yes, it's so sweet. Such a boss. Well, you can tell that Carson is such a boss, and you've done so much work to
This is so sweet. Thank you.
It's so sweet. You've done so much work to be able to provide such a service to people, and your service is so selfless, and I think that's so beautiful, is that, and I've always loved your spirit. I mean, I know, like, when I first met you, you were really young, and you're still very young, but you were like, I feel like you were like 11 or something. I don't know, like, you were so young, and then but then, it's so funny, as you grew into this young woman, I was just like, wow, her energy, her presence, like, she's just such a beautiful spirit. And I mean, I sent my kids to the same preschool that you went to, because I was like, I want my kids to grow up like her, like, I was like, oh, I love her so much. So it's just wonderful to be able to talk to you. And we have a very important and exciting announcement. Anna, do you want to give us the okay, I will do it. Did you not read my email beforehand? No, it's okay. It's okay. So we actually.
Oh, yes, I know the announcement, but you could.
We're doing Mother's Day bundles for BＡO, and we're incorporating some companies that really mean a lot to us, and we are going to have See in the Moon in our Mother's Day bundle, which we're so excited about.
I'm so excited. Thank you.
We'll have a few different ones. Absolutely. If you don't know See in the Moon, we're going to be sending out an email afterwards, but we want to make sure that you guys all check out her beautiful company and spread the word about her doula work and photography. If you live in LA, she's incredible. And then also, if you don't live in LA, you can jump into your Growing Together class, right? Which is another way that you can connect with someone who has really so many things to offer in this specific space. And you will also get an email following this live that will have a very special discount code for all of you who joined us today. Yay! So Carson,
thank you guys. And I admire you both so much. And every time I'm like, if you guys can do it, whether it's running a business, just hosting things like this, writing a book, having amazing products, and raising 3 now, both beautiful children. It just really excites me because I feel like I don't even have kids yet. How will I ever do that? And I want you to know how much I look to you guys as amazing mothers first and foremost, but also just wonderful, loving, talented businesswomen as well. So
thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm always like, what's Carson doing? What Instagram posts is she putting up now for See in the Moon? Like, what stockiest are you in?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm over here doing the same and listening to your music and just love just all of the you guys living life and doing all the things that make you happy. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
I can't wait to have you photograph. I'm going to put my intentions out. Really want you there.
I'm going to sneak in.
Just pretend you're
I break the rules sometimes.
Bring that peacock and then
I know. It's like, bring the peacock.
I know. Me and the peacock will come in and raise hell.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are going to continue this Coffee with BAEO live series. We'll have many more people on, and hopefully more wonderful conversations like we had today. And we'll talk to you all soon. And we're going to post this up on our blog as well so that everybody can watch it. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.